Divorce sucks. Welcome to Divorce with Integrity. This is the most important and open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of moving from matrimony to acrimony to harmony. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe you're good-looking, you're always looking for and finding the good. We have found good in abundance. You are tuned in consciously, conscientiously to Divorce with Integrity because you care what happens on this show, because you care the most in the entire world about you. Why you? And that's great, because when you're the best you make the world a better place. You build more bridges of harmony. You create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. And no matter what the circumstances, and we're talking about the big D, and the big D is so prevalent in Western society. The United States, of course, is the leader of the world, unfortunately, in divorce rate, but it's done, I believe, for a positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant outcome if, and that's a big if, remember, IF are the two most powerful words in the English language, if one understands that the process that's involved is going to be like the birth canal. It may be difficult, it may be tough, it may be hurtful, but the ultimate result is going to be beneficial for all parties. And that's really what we want to talk about today. This show came about because of discussion with myself and Esty Starr, who for the moment is not with us, but she'll be with us, God willing, later in the show, or even maybe not, doesn't matter. And we were talking about, when I interviewed her on my podcast, about the fact that she is a Jewish woman with 5 children who just recently was divorced, or recently divorced over the course of a couple of years. And we were talking about the process and how divorce with integrity was what she was really working towards and forward in her life. And that caught my attention. And so now we're in our second year of this remarkable discussion of divorce with integrity. We call it DWI, as opposed to drinking with influence, whatever that goes. You can't be arrested for DWI. You can't DUI. And we're very blessed to have with us people who are deeply involved in either the process of helping others either decide to divorce or not, and people who have gone through the process and, again, emerging with integrity. And so the title of this particular segment is called we're going to add wonderful Esty. Welcome, Esty. Before we talk about this particular segment is called The Road from Bitterness to Cordiality to Sweetness. Again, that is the, God willing, the outcome. It may not be how people started out. No, I don't think. Now, I'm going to posit this, actually. It'll be interesting because we have our wonderful panel here. We are joined today, by the way, by a newbie. We welcome our newbie. Big round of applause, please, for our newbie. That's Jeff Goldberg. He's one of 17,823 Jeff Goldbergs in the world. But we're not the best one. And Jeff is a dear friend of Joe Applebaum. And he is recommended that Jeff be on the program because Jeff is articulate, he's smart, and he's been through the process. And we're going to talk about that maybe in a deeper degree than normal in terms of a particular story. So I just want to make sure that we give time to each person and we introduce them. So let me begin with me. Yes, your humble host, Barry Shore. I am known as the ambassador of joy. And again, this show is not about Barry or Jeff or Esty or Lori. It's about you. Why are you? That's why you tuned in. And thank God we have thousands of people around the world tune in. I am here to state categorically that I am happily married for 45 years. Actually, let me rephrase that. I am married for 45 years. Most of the time, very happily. But hello, we're human. Stuff happens. And there's always the nature of what I call tectonic plates going up against each other and causing oftentimes eruptions. But again, the overall idea that for us, the overarching idea was to continue to be married. Esty has a different story. Esty is an observant Jewish woman, married for, I think you were married for what, 16 years?
15, yeah.
Okay, she's being picky. 15 years. Most of the time, it was harmonious and happy, but obviously, a number of those years were not. And she recognized that it took time. And she has, I think, blessed with 5 children. And she's been through the process. And again, she's the one who came up with this idea of divorce with integrity. Wonderful Lori McDermott is known as the wife expert. She deals with mostly women, but some men as well, who are in the process of looking at, thinking about, in the midst of divorce. And she lives in Southern California, as does Esty. Esty lives in Los Angeles. Lori lives in a place, I think, Manhattan Beach. And she's dealing with a very interesting group of people because they are economically doing very well. And yet there's something happening in their world that just is falling apart and they don't know what to do. They come to Lori. And now we're blessed also with Jeff Goldberg, who is by profession a sales trainer, and by his own information to me, he went through what I call, or he used the word, a bitter divorce. And over the course of the number of years is now a very sweet situation between himself and his wife. And I'll make this statement, then you can correct me later or not, Jeff, is because each one of you have found the best you in life now. And that's really why you're sweet with each other. It's not because you love each other anymore. Maybe you do, but it's a different kind of love than had been through the time of marriage. So that's the introduction to our wonderful panel. So we're just going to jump right in and posit a question. And I'm going to begin with wonderful Esty, as we do. She's lead-off batter. And yes, that's a beautiful haircut. And I can say this very openly. I am jealous of those curls in that hair. Now, when I was younger, I had beautiful black hair, actually longer than Lori's, down to here. It was very, very nice because I was a hippie. Okay, that's another story. So let's begin with wonderful Esty. And the question on the table is the following. I'm going to say something that's really going to be tough. I assume that almost everybody's experienced this. You had sometimes either eaten something or drank too much or something, and sort of something rises up in your stomach and it comes out as bile in your mouth and it tastes horrible. You know that feeling, and really something, was that your first process when divorce became part of your life, that it just didn't taste good? It was physically painful to you?
It was, that's an echo. It was physically painful, but not in that specific graphic description, although thank you for that. It was, I really went through the DABDA grieving process, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I might still be finishing it off actually, but I'm trying to remember where I was at when it first happened. I was so paranoid. I was so afraid. I was so shocked. And I was really pained. It wasn't that nausea feeling. It was the other ones, right? The things I just described: shock, pain, fear, anger, definitely.
And if I may be bold, because we've discussed this previously,
Yeah.
we're not, uncovering old wounds and such. You were the one who initiated or wanted the a divorce. Is that correct?
No, not exactly. I initiated separation as a last ditch effort to save the marriage on the advice of therapists and community leaders who had been involved with us. And I did not utter the word divorce from when I dated my husband until probably about a month after I was served papers. So I got divorce papers and I was like, I got dissolution of marriage papers. Like I couldn't say it. I did not. It was like there was a part of me that knew it was coming, but I so much didn't want it. And I so much wanted things to be different, but I also was not willing to continue with things the way they were. So
That's
I
by the way,
initiated that there had to be change because I wasn't able or willing to continue with the way our relationship was.
that's a very important point, by the way. I think for many, many people listening here, it's that issue of we cannot continue in life this way. It's untenable.
Yeah.
By the same
So I
token,
initiated that. And
Okay.
then my husband's response at the time was, well, if we're going to separate, we're done. And I've mentioned this on a previous chat of ours that, unless we invite him on and he explains himself, we won't know why he did it, right? I don't know if because I got a text at the time that I was served papers. He must have been sitting in a car across the street, like watching me get served. It was a Friday, beginning of COVID. I'm wearing COVID casual, so dress shirt, pajama bottoms. I'd just been on meetings for like 10 hours, and doorbell rings. My kids are like, "Ma, someone's at the door for you." I come down the hall, I'm like bleary-eyed. It's Friday, and there's a guy there that looks blue shirt, slacks, badge. Asking my name. He's like, "These are for you." I was like, I'd never been served before. I didn't know divorce was a lawsuit. I didn't know that. I've never been divorced, nor had I ever been sued. Okay. Like none of this had ever happened to me. I was in so much shock, and I got a text at the exact same time that said, "Hey, we don't have to do anything about this. I just to protect the kids. We can ignore it and still work things out." And I was like, well, actually, no, that's not how a lawsuit works. I'm legally bound to respond to this, actually. And for me, that was the moment I knew it was over. Until that moment, I was like, we have a chance. Maybe something will work. And it was at that point, there was just a tiny chance. It wasn't the largest, right? It was like a 5%, 1%, whatever, 0.5%, doesn't matter. But there was still, I had this like, maybe this will change it enough and we're going to be okay. Because and I've told this to you before, I still have issues with what I call Adam and Eve syndrome, which is just one partner for life, right? We're created with one partner, one soul.
By the way, let me unpack something here that's very important, because you mentioned about the grieving process, and the first emotional response in grieving is denial.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said it very well. Let's just do a segue. Jeff, first of all, Jeff Goldberg, welcome. Good to have you here. Nice, bright, beaming face. So you are on the opposite side of the screen, and you're the male counterpart here to what Essie has been describing. If you'd be so kind, just give us some personal background, if you don't mind, because now you're divorced for a number of years, so you've settled in. How long were you married, and what was the process like? Was it a mutual? Was it you, your wife? What was the story that began the process?
Sure. Thank you for having me, first of all. I was married for just under 10 years. And 2 weeks before my wedding, my best friend, who was also my best man, who's also one of the top divorce attorneys here on Long Island, called me and said, "Look, you're making a mistake. You got to call this off. You're marrying the toughest woman I've ever met, and I'm married to a tough woman. You're going to be my client one day." And I knew he was right, but I did not have the heart to call it off, because my now ex-wife had been dumped at the altar previous to meeting me. So I figured, everything will work out. Once she gets married, she realizes I'm not running anywhere. It's all going to work out, except it didn't. We were in therapy, the very first year of marriage, and that's never a great sign. My ex-wife is a wonderful mom and human being, and I adore her for all the things that I first loved about her. She's a great co-parent, but she's a she has a challenging personality sometimes, and I'm kind of a very mellow guy. I like peace and tranquility, and she's kind of a yeller and a screamer. So from the very beginning, it was challenging. Um, Eventually, we got to the point where things were just acrimonious most of the time, and I moved myself down to the basement of our house. We had three young children at the time. Our kids were 3 and 2, 4 and 3 when we actually split. And I moved a mattress down to the basement. That's where I stayed. My work was down there. My sleep was down there. My kids would come down every morning and wake up Daddy. And one day I went up there. I would wait until she would leave for work to go upstairs, to go to the bathroom or do anything because I didn't want to see her and she didn't want to see me.
So let me just put this in perspective. So you were actually divorced in your own home.
100%.
It was two different lives with some glue, which are called kids. But
Yes.
other than that, there was no reason for you two to be together and creating this wonderful world called marriage.
Correct. Except, like Esty, my father had been divorced, married 6 times, my mom 3. And
Wait a minute. This is a bombshell. Hello, everybody. Did you say 6?
He married my mom twice and 4 other women once. So he was married 6 times, and my mom was married 3 times. And when we got married, I told my wife, there is nothing that will ever cause me to divorce you except infidelity. If you cheat on me once, we're done. Other than that, we're together for life. We're going to work everything out because that's what adults do. And one day I walked up the stairs because I thought she was leaving, and she was standing right at the top of the stairs, right in front of the bathroom. And I said, look, this isn't working for you. This isn't working for me. And it's certainly not working for our children. Let's find a way to work this out. And she said, I'm thinking in the other direction. My response was, there's only 2 directions. And she goes, yeah, I'm thinking in the other one. So I said, look, you know who my best friend is. He's my attorney. Go get an attorney. Let's just do this. And so that's what she did. She went and hired a superstar attorney, even though we did not have a ton of stuff that needed to be divided up. And she went out and found an attorney. During that day, after she left, I wrote out, here's all the things I'm willing to give up. And when she got home that night, I presented her with the list. I said, if you want to make this easy, that's absolutely what I want. Clearly we can't work together anymore. Here's what I'm willing to do. And she said, nope, we're going to go through the process. And she wanted to hurt me. Like Esty, I still have no idea because I never asked her, why did you divorce me? But I did want to work it out, and there just was no opportunity. So we went through a year of back and forth through my attorney, her attorney, and it became apparent. My attorney is a very intelligent gentleman, very experienced, and he said, look, she just wants to hurt you as badly as she possibly can. And we met a bunch of times, and nothing worked until the very end when my friend, who growing up never lost a game playing Monopoly or anything else, he would cheat if he had to. And his philosophy on divorce as an attorney is, this doesn't have to be horrendous. You're breaking up a partnership, and it can absolutely be done. I like the words with integrity, and it doesn't have to be as painful as most people think. But his philosophy is also, if the other side's being unreasonable, he'll rip their lungs out. And at the end of the day, that's what he had to do. And we wound up she got a much worse deal than the one I first presented her with on the day she asked for the divorce.
By the way, let me unpack, because this is a lot of stuff for people listening. And I'm sure that there are many people out there shaking their heads.
And there are many people who want the phone number of your friend.
Happy to give it out. He's the best. And if I told you how we actually got divorced, what actually finally did it, you go, I can't believe this.
Now you have to tell.
Yeah, right? Like, what
Obviously.
But by the way, I want to go back to the one of the last points you mentioned, and I think it says a lot about the human condition. When you first presented to your then wife, because you did it I'm saying this, in a spirit of equity, in a spirit of love, in a spirit of let's see what I can do, because you said you're the more laid back person, let's, for want of a better term. Let's see what I can do. This is what I'm willing to give to you, not keep for myself, to give. And you were met with no, and the acrimony, and again, the human condition. I'll tell you a quick story that happened to me in a court of law. and I was a jerk, and it cost me a lot of money because of it. But at the end, she didn't even get what you had offered, and it cost a lot of money, time, anxiety, hurt. In other words, there was no benefit. So I'll tell you quickly what happened to me. I was in a court case. Some people said, you owe me this, $20,000. And I said, no, I owe you maybe $5,000. It was a business transaction. And the judge asked and said, look, I'm willing to legislate, to adjudicate and say, you owe the other side $8,000. And what did I do? Dumb bunny. I only own $5. And I'll tell you why I only own $5. Okay. At the end of the day, which was another hour and a half of discussions and things like that, how much did I end up paying? $20,000 plus, because I wasn't smart enough to understand to remove the ego and to allow integrity to come in and see what was really the best. And I think that's part of what you were discussing here. Now, the other interesting thing to me is that you said you began your marriage with an indication from the person who is your best friend, who is your divorce attorney, encouraging you to take a second look, as it were. But of course, we being ego-filled beings, the second look said, oh, yeah, well, I must be right, because you know why? I'm smart.
No, he did not encourage me to take a second look. He said, run for the hills.
Oh, I'm saying, no. I'm saying you said, I'm going to take a second look. He said, run for the hills. And you say, well, look, I know you love me, but you don't know her like I know her. Whatever. Whatever the point was. And you went from, I think you were the one who told me that it was very bitter, those first few, that year or two or three, whatever it took.
Way longer than that.
Okay, good. We'll get back then. Okay, let's go to our wife expert, wonderful Lori, because Lori works with you. By the way, you said something, Jeff, that was really quite telling. It touches Lori's life and a lot of the people that she works with. Infidelity. Now, from your point of view, that was the often used term red line, which usually for people who are not don't have guts, red line is not a red line, but that's a different story. But for Lori, she lives in the world of infidelity. She experienced it herself, and she came through it. And now she counsels people, specifically women, who are either touched by infidelity, either, by the way, in terms of physical infidelity, or maybe even economic infidelity. In other words, the husband is not in any way treating the wife correctly. So, Lori, let's discuss about this interesting path called from bitter to cordial to eventually being sweet. In other words, I'm now my own human being. I can really live a full life. So would you comment on that, please?
I
know. You got to narrow it for me, Barry. Give me a one question, because that I can go anywhere.
Here's the question. Here's the question for you. Do most of the people you work with, are they in divorce because of infidelity?
Yeah. That's most of the people I work with. So kind of like Jeff. Jeff said the perfect story of why someone would call me. The wife says, I want a divorce. She doesn't want a divorce because she doesn't think they're getting along. She wants a divorce because she wants to go, screw you, I'm going to piss you off. And she's hoping that in the end, he's going to go, but I love you and I really care about you. Everyone, all human beings want two things, love and understanding. And if they don't get it from the person that they thought they were going to get it from, they may go, screw you, screw you, screw you. And they hammer at you. And that's not what works. Being angry and bitter at the person that you're supposed to love isn't going to get them to suddenly turn around and go, okay, I love you. Okay, let's go to therapy. It doesn't work like that. So when someone claims, I'm getting divorced, I don't want to be with you, let's go that way. Everyone goes, okay, I'll one up you. We're going that way. So my clients are Jeff. My clients call me and say, my spouse wants a divorce. I don't. Every one of my friends is saying, get divorced, get divorced, get divorced. And I'm like, I know there's a way to get back with my person. How do I do that? And I walk down the path with those people. Oftentimes, sometimes people will go the path with me and then give up. Can't handle it. I'm out. I can't help those people. But what's funny is those people show up a year later and said, I just can't give up. I know I said no a long time ago, but we're still hanging in there. I'm like, okay, let's do this. But it's whatever you want. You know, in some cases, people, you know, you don't want to be together for substance abuse or for, you know, hitting. I don't think that's ever a good idea. If someone physical to you, run, sign divorce papers. I will help you. But if it's little tit for tat kind of stuff and you enjoy being physical together, you have a really good chance. Now, if it goes like this anyway, I still think people could be divorced for 5 years, 10 years and get back together, just like Jeff's dad. That happens. People think, no, that can't happen. Of course it can happen. If you want it, we can make it happen. That's how I work.
So this is fascinating because I know that, again, almost every show you bring out these two pieces because it's probably one of the first things that you discuss with the people that come to you and want help. Hello, do you want love and understanding? Well, yeah, that's what I'm not getting. Now, they don't articulate it like that. They say, well, he did this and he did this or she did that and pointing fingers. But really what people want in life is love and understanding. In other words, I'm listening to Jeff, and I got to tell you something, Jeff. My heart was aching when you told me you were living downstairs. Because you're right. Your work was downstairs. Your life was downstairs. Your existence was downstairs. And upstairs was the woman that you married and sired 3 kids with. I mean, that was painful to me to hear that.
Upstairs was pain, Barry. Upstairs was where the pain was. And can I share with you what my attorney friend told me about why people get divorced?
Yes.
With lots and lots of experience, he said, here's why people get divorced. Men just want their woman to stay the same. We want the fun, sexual being, happy girl that we met. And women just want their man to change.
Woo! Okay, so that's why his attorney charges $1,000 an hour, and it's worth it. Okay, $850. But the point is that that doesn't matter. In other words, it's a large number. The point is that you're right. Let's articulate that again. The man wants the nubile woman. I use nubile because I love that word. When a man wants a nubile woman, and the woman wants the man that she envisioned would become the one. In other words, are you metamorphosizing yet? When are you going to become the person that I think you should be? Right?
The man wants his girlfriend. The woman wants a husband. Whatever that picture is for her.
Or an ideal, yeah. They have a picture.
It's not who you are necessarily.
Right, and part of now one of the reasons it's very funny. I'll just say here, when Joe is on the show, one of the things that Joe emphasizes almost every show. No, not almost every show, is that when you go to a divorce attorney or 2 attorneys, what you're doing, you're drawing up information, contracts. This will happen here. This is my rights, this is your rights, etc. He says people don't do that when they enter into marriage. It's starry-eyed, and things will work out, which is what you said, as opposed to being rational and really looking at what can happen. What is the purpose of marriage? We oftentimes don't even think about it. It happens to be the Lori and I do another podcast called Marriage with Joy. This is Divorce with Integrity. We are 2 of 4 people on Marriage with Joy. And the ability to enter into matrimony, having discussed with the other person what it is that, not just our values, but what is it we really want? Why are we getting married? Okay, hey, you look good to me. I look good to you. That's pretty cool. That's nice for attraction. What do we do next week? You know, what does marriage bring? Because marriage has a component, I believe, of both of the things that you mentioned, Jeff, and that the attorney mentioned. Marriage has the ability to have sexual intimacy, physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy in a very safe environment, which, by the way, doesn't exist in the outside world. Just doesn't. And hello, that's what marriage is supposed to be. In addition to that, that's from the male point of view, both female and male. But from the female's point of view, marriage is also a place where you're supposed to grow. Because we do. We change. I mean, Jeff Goldberg is not the same Jeff Goldberg that he was 20 years ago. Lori is not the same Lori she was 10 minutes ago. And Esty is certainly not the same Esty that she was, 14 years ago. Look at that face. Look at that. So,
I'm almost unrecognizable, but I wanted to just say something to Jeff's point, because I hear it a lot, right? A lot of people say, the man just wants his woman to stay the same. The woman just wants her man to change. And being female and having self-awareness for my self-awareness that occasionally observes another level of self-awareness, I, in addition to living a lot in my mind, I analyze what's in there. And I know for myself, I didn't go into my marriage trying to change my husband. I actually was very purposely looking for someone who I liked the way he was. What I will say that I realized over time is that, and I believe this about all people, we see what we want to see. We project things onto others that may or may not be there. And so you could say I wanted my husband to change, but it wasn't that. It was that I wanted him to be who I thought he was, but wasn't.
okay,
And-
by the way, that's
It's a
similar.
nuance, but I think it's important because I think that a lot of people get a bad rap. And you could say that men, maybe they're better at seeing their woman for who she actually is and just want her to stay the same. And women are just worse at seeing men for who they are. And they just want them to be who they think they are. And I can't tell you if this is across the board or not. I know that I am excellent at seeing people's potential. It's great in my business, worse in my relationships. Because I also see the potential as reality. I'm like, no, you're this, like it's already here. I see it. It's real. It's so real to me. I feel like it's here right now. But it's not always there right now. And I think that's important. And I think just to take it back to our theme, from bitter to cordial to sweet, when you start to acknowledge that it was never them, it was you. You wanted to see what you wanted to see. You wanted them to be the person you wanted them to be, that they weren't. Everyone's like, oh, they changed. I remember telling someone after my divorce, I'm like, he changed so much. And one of my friends was like,
said, no, I became me.
No. I was like, no, he used to be, I said better, but he got worse. It's like, no, Esty, he was always like that. You just didn't see it. He hasn't, like, people from the outside were like, that's just who he was. And not judging bad or good, right? That's just who he was. And I'm like, no, he's changed for the worse. Like, you just saw what was there finally. And again, not a judgment, bad, good, other. When we can see that we only saw what we wanted to see, and then we're finally actually seeing what's there, we can stop being mad at the other person for just being who they are and who they've always been. And, you have the potential to heal and not be mad at yourself for seeing what you want to see, because we're always doing the best we can. We are. And we saw what we wanted to see because that's what we needed to see.
Let's unpack something here you're saying, because I think it's truly important, and it goes to the heart of people. Again, part of divorce, I've never been divorced, but I've been through lots of stuff in my marriage, really tense times. Part of divorce is that you've touched upon the most raw nerve of the human being and the other human being in your life. Because let's be blunt, aside from children, there is no closer relationship than two people who entered into matrimony. And there is a sense of betrayal at some point where bitterness comes in. And you're saying, I think quite correctly, that now the other person is seeing you for who you really are, and you're seeing yourself for who you really are. And you can't live with that other being knowing that in reality, you can't be the full you if that other person is not willing to see who you are. And therefore, it's not possible to live together. I hope I'm being articulate enough.
I hear it. I think yes, and sometimes you get to a point where you recognize that who you thought you were and who you thought they were was wrong. And then the question becomes, who do you get mad at? Are you mad at them for changing, for failing, for not doing what they had to do, for not being who they have to be? Or are you mad at yourself?
I mean, 1 second. If you're only listening to this, you're missing out on the facial expressions of Esty, and when you because no, that
You're very expressive.
No, it was fun. But I want to move to Jeff. Jeff, in this same vein as Esty articulated about, let's call it self-awareness, when you, I don't know when that happened in your marriage. Like you said, the first year you were already in therapy. Something was off. Was there a point in your marriage where before the final end, the final bell tolled, was there a time where you recognized this just doesn't, it's not human to live like this?
Yes, 100%. It was in the first year of our marriage before we even considered trying to have children. I'll make this a quick story. We went to a wedding of a friend, and on that particular day, my wife was absolutely the most beautiful woman in the place, dressed. I mean, every eye was on her. The bride was pissed off, blah, blah, blah. And it was just what she looked hot. And we got home, and as she was undressing, she asked me the question, which she asked me constantly, which was, do I have cellulite? And my answer always was, no, you don't have cellulite. And that day she goes, come on, I have cellulite. No, you don't have cellulite. Yes, back and forth, back and forth. I finally said this, look, if you have cellulite, which you don't, but if you do, it's only a tiny little bit. That triggered a 24-hour argument. How could you say I have a cellulite? I mean, it was irrational. And the louder that my ex-wife would get, the quieter I would get, because that's just how I react. I'm not a screamer and a holler, and that would make her more infuriated. So we had this horrible, horrible argument that lasted an entire day. On the second day of it, I finally at one point said, I need a break. I'm going out to take a walk. We were living in Soho in New York. So I went to take a walk through the neighborhood. And when I got back, the chain was on the door, so I couldn't get in. And I said, Jack, please open the door. Please open the door. She wouldn't open up the door. Here's how long ago this was. I went to a payphone. There were no cell phones in those days. I called her. I'm leaving her a message saying, please don't do this. Let me in so we can talk this out, finish this, and move on. If you don't let me in, I'm leaving you. And I walked back to the house. She wouldn't let me in. And I left. I went to a hotel that night, and I ordered Chinese food and watched Schindler's List. And about 10:30 at night, the phone rang in the hotel. I'm like, who the hell's calling me? Nobody knows I'm here. It was her father, who had called the credit card companies and found out what was going on. And she got on the phone and begged forgiveness and said, I will go to a psychiatrist. I'm so wrong. I'm crazy, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I was absolutely ready to get on a train and take the train out to Long Island to see my best buddy, the divorce attorney, the next day. But she promised she would get better, and I believed her.
Rarely am I speechless, but that was a great story.
Thank you.
I mean, great, horrible story.
I get it.
Lori, I would be willing to wager that you have similar stories from some men and some women, especially in that issue of your wife, Jeff, saying, now, do I have da-da-da, whatever it was.
Cellulite.
Right. And then even when you said just a little, you see, you really do, but I got her from you. You were hiding all that. Do you have that kind of stuff happening, Lori?
Yeah, all the time. And so if I can add to this, I don't coach both people. I only coach one. And if the other one wants to talk to me, I'll talk to them, but never together, because I need to tell them you're doing something wrong. Here's what you're doing wrong, because I need that person to be honest with me without afraid of what their partner because most people in those moments have their pride and their ego, and pride and ego do not belong in a marriage. So if you get both of them together, they're going to fight about stupid stuff. So if I can get one person alone and confidently talk to them privately, confidentially talk to them privately, we can get through what's wrong and what can you do to raise the white flag and be a little humble. So in that case, when she's like, do I have cellulite? Do I have cellulite? I have a wife who I coach the husband, and she's always like, do I look fat in this? And he's like, he wants to go, he had gained 100 pounds. I can see it. But the wife doesn't want to have sex with him because she's too fat. So it is like making her feel like he doesn't care. I think you're beautiful no matter what size you are. I don't see your body. When I look at you, you could gain 100 pounds. You could lose 100 pounds. I see your beautiful soul. If you want me to look closely with a magnifying glass to see if you have cellulite, I'll do it. But if I see it and I tell you you have it, don't get mad at me. And if she gets mad, we go, we had an agreement. I looked, why are you mad at me? And the thing is, you got to stay there and be sensible and have that dialogue. You know, if she's still crazy, you got kids together, you still have to communicate with her. And if she's crazy, you have to get used to talking to crazy. And there are ways of talking to crazy. It's like people who have a dog. Your dog talks differently to you than someone else's dog. So you have to know how to talk to your dog. So your wife is your dog. You have to know how to talk to her, or your ex-wife, sorry. So if she says anything crazy, you have to know how to communicate with her so that she not only hears you, but gives you what you want.
I get it. And one of the therapists that I went to on my own, the whole therapy session every week was, here are strategies for surviving in your marriage. And it just didn't work after a while. I'll tell you something else. We went to 3 different marriage counselors at 3 different times. And like you said, at some point, they always say, I want to meet with you privately. I want to meet with you privately. So the last one met with my ex-wife first, and then I went in the following week. And I started by saying this: before we even get started today, should I be getting a divorce? And the therapist said, well, that's interesting because your wife started her session last week the exact same way. And I'm going to tell you what I told her. I can't advise you to get divorced. I can only help you work through it if that's what you choose to do. But Jeff, I do want to tell you something. You sure put up with a lot of shit. I think when your therapist tells you that, you're probably in the wrong place. But I have good news too. And I don't know how much time we have, but I want to make sure we get this out. So for many, many years, I've been divorced for 18 years, and probably for the first 15 and a half or 16, things were very bad between us most of the time. I considered every email, every text I got started out with, Jeff, you effing asshole. She never said those words, but in my head, that's what I was hearing. Or every conversation was, Jeff, you moron. She never said that, but that's how I heard her. And I worked with a very special coach for a while. And one day we were chatting via Zoom, just like this. And at one point I went like this, because I was having a revelation, and she gave me the space to think. And I said, I got to tell you something. I just had an amazing get. And that is that I've been blaming Jackie, that's my ex-wife, Jackie, for everything that happened before the marriage, during the marriage, after the, it's all her fault. And I just realized that it can't possibly be that way. It's at least 50% my fault. And we chatted about that for the rest of the session. But here's the point I'm trying to make. Afterwards, I called Jackie and I said, this may sound weird, but I've been working with this very special person for a while. And I had a realization today. I'm tearing up just telling you this. I had a realization today that I've been blaming you for everything. If our kids are screwed up, your fault. Our marriage, it's all your fault. And I realized today it's absolutely at least half my fault. And I can't apologize enough. I'm so sorry. And there was what felt like 10 minutes of silence. It was probably 20 seconds or so. And I said, are you still there? And she goes, yeah, just give me a minute. And then she came back on and said, I knew you felt that way. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you admitting that and apologizing. And I accept your apology. And in an instant, our relationship shifted. And we've been having this great relationship for the last almost 3 years, where we can be in each other's company with our kids or privately. We talk. There's no longer the I hate you, you hate me. We don't want to live together. I don't want to live with her, and I don't think she wants to live with me. But it was my accepting responsibility for whatever my portion really was that shifted the thing. It had nothing to do with her. It was really all me.
So what a wonderful segue into 3 things. Number 1, you just articulated the title of my new book, which is coming out in the next 6 weeks. I just finished it's going to press. It's called Oh Shift. And it's Scrabble tiles with the F a little bit below the line, because most people, I've been dealing with people for 4+ decades, helping them. And 97.2% of people drop the F and shift, and the other stuff happens. But yes, that was an amazing revelation. You said, to quote Lori, pride and ego have no place in a marriage. And that's what you just articulated, Jeff, and demonstrated. And when you do what we call PR, personal responsibility, it's all, not just that there's a shift which happens. It's as if you took a 50-pound weight off your back or a backpack, put it down in the corner and say, okay, I have a life. And I can actually even speak with, I was talking about, from bitter to cordial to now maybe even sweet with the person that you raised kids with or had kids with. And it's not easy, but when that revelation happens, isn't that amazing? By the way, there's the book in the Bible is mostly misquoted. In the New Testament, people who don't know, called the book of Revelations, and it's not plural. It's the book of Revelation because it is a unique revelation in one's life that truly enables the shift, and everything happens from there. As you said wonderfully, Lori, humility becomes the stepping stone to living a life that's full and wonderful and joyful and pleasant and positive and purposeful. We only have a few more minutes. I'd like to ask wonderful, beautiful Esty with her great haircut.
I don't have a haircut. Lori has the haircut.
Whoa! I saw a nice hair. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
I put in the chat that I
full
complimented Lori on her haircut.
Excuse me. I take full responsibility for not reading right. Hello, it's Esty saying to Lori, nice haircut, Lori. Lori, nice haircut.
Thank you.
My hair just looks different every single time because I've never had the same hair day twice in my whole life. That's just part of this. That's what it does.
We're going to do this on the next show. And Jeff, I think I'm going to ask you to come back and be with us, even if Joe is here. I think it'd be a wonderful thing if you'd be kind enough to consider doing that. Because the next show, we want to talk about more about with children and how that changes the dynamic of things like that. Because as you mentioned, Jeff, you were married for 10 years. I'm going to say these words. It seems like most of them were strained and difficult. Not all of, obviously, but and now no longer married for 18 years. But it took a period of time to get to a point, like you just said, only 3 years ago, to get to a point where you can feel at ease, like a feather, like there's something light and wonderful about life and you, and especially with that other person called your former wife. So we only have a few minutes to finish up here, but I'm going to ask Esty to comment just quickly, if you'd be so kind. Now your relationship with your former husband, would you say that it's cordial, cold, or comfortable? Comfortable.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, and you believe that that's mutual?
I'll give you an example. My boys, 2 of them needed new shoes. So I ordered, I don't love shopping. Anything that I can order online and that shows up at my house, and then I just got to take it to UPS if it doesn't work. I don't like wandering through. It's not for me. My ex-husband always was that person, right? Loved to shop and go through the stores. And so my boys needed shoes. And I ordered them shoes, didn't like them, had to return them, ordered them shoes, didn't like them. So Sunday, my ex calls me. He's like, hey, I have the boys at the shoe store. Now, mind you, we have a deal because the kids are with me weekdays and they're with him weekends. It's not written in our contract, but there's a verbal understanding between us. He gets them their Shabbat shoes, right? So they're dress shoes, and I get them their weekday shoes. And it's very simple like that. And kids' shoes, they're expensive and they're disposable, right? Like one of my kids they were practically new, and he just like ripped the soles out and they were like, hold on. I was like, those were 3 weeks old, whatever. And I don't buy them cheap shoes. Anyways, so he calls me, he's like, we're at the shoe store with the boys. Now, he didn't say anything about you should have done this. He just said, I'm at the shoe store with the boys. They found shoes that they like. But again, I'm going to have to pay for them. He's like, so does this work for you? So he took them to the store. He picked out the shoes with them. He checked in with me. And I just Venmoed him the money. That, to me, A, amazing co-parenting. B, I'm so happy. My boys have shoes that they love. I didn't have to go to a store. I'm thrilled. And I got no recriminations from him. There was no like, you had to do this and I'm doing this. And you're not taking care of our kid. There was none of that. Why it worked for him to go to the store if he got them other things, I didn't even ask.
So we'll go with comfortable. Good.
That's what I'm saying. And
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And I think it goes with what Jeff said. When you take your own responsibility for your part in something, for me, it was my part in projecting onto him who I wanted him to be, who I thought he was, and acknowledging that he wasn't, whatever I built up in my head. And you're then not blaming them all day for just being who they are. You have the space to actually build a relationship.
Good. So we'll ask Jeff, comfortable? No, let's not. Cordial, cold, comfortable. Where are you now?
Comfortable plus. We get along great.
And by the way, that thing, because of that spreads out to the kids as well. Again, we're not going to do a kids show now, but
100%. The kids absolutely can see the shift in the way we are, and that causes the shift in them.
right. Oh, shift.
And the kids know. We'll talk about this more next week when we talk about kids, but like, because of the level of communication, when you get to that place, a few weeks ago, one of the kids did something with screens. I don't remember. So my ex told him he can't have any screens. And he said to me, this is what happened. And we don't impose on each other's homes, but we like share whatever it was that happened. He said, this is what happened. This is what I told him. And whatever, do what you want. And so I saw my son on a screen. I said, excuse me, Dad said you're punished. No screens. He's like, that's his house. I said, we parent you together. It's my house too. And the other kid is like, I told you they work together. See, they know. So one's trying to get out of it, but they know. It's a whole different world when you get.
Hello, the kids are intuitive, they're sensitive, and they're also vulnerable. So we'll talk about that on the next show. But wonderful, Lori, when if you could think of one or two people that you've had some really strong interaction with over just the past few months, and maybe they are divorced at the moment, think of one or two that are divorced. Are they in the cold period, the cordial period, or the comfortable period?
Oh, everyone I coach who's divorced, I get them to be completely engaged, have integrity, and comfortable. So,
and it's happening.
Oh, all the time. My group, my people that I coach are. The response they're getting from the other people isn't.
Yeah, my people, right. Well, that's why they come to you, because my people, see, by the way, everybody has to understand, Lori comes from Chicago, the South Side, she's tough. My people.
My people.
North Side, Chicago.
I teach people, I'm actually from the North Side, but I teach people to, if someone's throwing crap at you, you duck. You just swat at it. You don't take it in. You don't ingest it. If you get a negative comment at you, you go, poop. Anyway, you rise above it. You maintain who you are. If you're a good person and you speak with eloquence and confidence, and you know what you want, when someone comes along and starts throwing dirt at you, you just look at them like, well, that's weird. That's not a normal conversation. You don't judge them and tell them that's not a normal conversation. You just bring it to a normal conversation by your behavior. That's what I teach.
And that's why the name of this podcast is called Divorce with Integrity.
Yep.
The ability for people to have gone through marriage, divorce, a very difficult process. It rends the heart, the mind, the spirit, and to get to a point where you are living in integrity. Again, this show is not about Barry Shore, nice guy that he is, or Jeff Goldberg, or Lori McDermott, or F.C. Star. It's about you, the one who's watching and listening. And the ability to get to that point of the I, integrity, and to live in harmony with oneself and comfort with that other person who is at one time your close partner. But like you said, Lori, living near the beach, let's use the surfing example, to be able to ride those waves and know, okay, the board goes in, you're going to fall into the water.
Say something? Can I add something really quickly? I'll make 30 seconds. One of my wives that I've been coaching, her husband is very angry at her. They've divorced, and one of their children is almost committing suicide. He's 12. And the father is saying, it's your fault. It's your fault. And she's like, what do we do about this? What do we do about this? And he's like, well, this is your fault. You have to. And again, every conversation is rising above, which we can do when we come with integrity.
So on that high note of integrity, as Esty had to run, she has an appointment with a client. So we end the show, Jeff, we do a group hug, which extends to thousands of people listening. And then we give a blessing. So I'll tell you what HUG stands for. You ready? HUG stands for heartfelt, unlimited giving. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. And our blessing to everybody watching and listening and using, go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad, go make a difference. Thanks, everybody. Best wishes. Bye. Let me see here. Do this. We do this. Divorce sucks. Welcome to Divorce with Integrity. This is the most important and open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of moving from matrimony to acrimony to harmony.